So now we are live online. This is a game on the Gauntlet calendar, and Jason Cordova unfortunately is not with us, but we still are able to play because we are grown-up Gauntleteers. And here we are playing the Society of Vegan Sorcerers, a game by Wendy Gorman, published in Codex Yellow a while ago. A wonderful little game gem, which is supposed to be a LARP. However, we play it online, which means we play it as a live-action online game, or a digital LARP, as others call it, which is that we are, as soon as we are in the actual playtime, we are 100% in character. So we could assume this is a video conference, or we are in a holodeck, and we just communicate through our screens with each other, and we are vegan sorcerers, as the title suggests. And so whatever you do, you speak first person, and you don't describe what your character is doing. That's the main difference towards other freeform games. We listen to each other. We can, when our tech doesn't work, suddenly our camera goes off. We just pretend that it's part of our character, that we just disappeared for a while, maybe a wrong teleportation spell or something. And we continue play as usual. We have our chat, the window where we organize the game, in which we can write what is actually going on with the player. So does that make sense to you? Yeah. And it's a short game. I don't expect it that the actual playtime is longer than an hour. I don't exactly know how we come to a natural ending. I assume we find that on the in our Hangout chat.
Yeah, I can help explain, I think, how the phases of the game will naturally progress us towards an ending. So we are all going to be playing Vegan Sorcerers, which means that we are actively trying to use alternative means of ritual to perform what would otherwise be horrific kinds of rituals to accomplish goals. So I think that the way this is going to work is we will all be joining in a conference. We should introduce ourselves as if you are at a conference, because each of us will introduce ourselves at some point, including our specialty of whatever particular vegan item that we are particularly attuned to. And then we will also introduce our problem. And when we introduce our problem, we start to suggest how we might solve the problem through a ritual. And we would probably describe, like, this is how the ritual would normally go, but I think we can accomplish it by my means of veganism, and then spill it out and then take suggestions, and feel free to ask questions of each other. Once we all agree, like, yes, this is the correct ritual that we should try to fix your problem, then that one is set aside, that problem is set aside, and we would move on to the next sorcerer and their problem. Once everyone has presented a problem and we have all agreed on a solution to all of the problems, then that would be the end of the meeting, and the meeting would be adjourned. And I think that would be the natural ending of a session of Society for Vegan Sorcerers.
Oh, that sounds good. Yeah, delicious. One important thing I would like to mention is that before we started the recording, we already discussed safety and what subject matters we would like to exclude from the game, although the original rituals, the non-vegan rituals, are pretty gore. We especially refer to the Carcosa book, which is out there. Don't know the name of the author, but it's by Lamentations of the Flame Princess Publishing. And so they are very gore. And we accepted that some content in here might be beyond Gauntlet standard. For example, violence against animals or children might be part of it, but we don't want to have rituals including sexual violence. So this is something we discussed before for the privacy of all participants, but it's at the table. All right. And the one last thing, if you have in the game something you don't feel comfortable with, then either you can cross your arms like this, which means that's the X card, and the X card works as usual, or you write it in the chat if you think it can also take some time. This is the fastest way, I would say, to tell others can we do this differently? Yeah, so far about safety. And given all this, I think we could go already into our little break. Feel free to leave your microphone on.
Before we do that, does anyone have any questions? Or does anyone need help with examples of like what a ritual might be or what a vegan specialty might be?
I think maybe I could use examples of what a ritual could be, because I haven't read the Carcosa material.
Yeah, so let's see. I'm looking at the text of Yellow because I think they've got some good examples in here. So at last month's meeting, it was brought up a nameless horror has been stalking through the region, stealing children and animals at will, and generally sowing terror and panic. A course of action involving, I don't know how you say this, legumes was proposed in order to take the place of the usual ritual, which involved supping from the brains of infants. In order to banish the nameless terror. But it only half worked. Now the nameless horror is stalking the region, stealing half children and half animals. So we need to try and come up with a modified ritual to get it 100% effective. Like that would be an example of a problem and a potential how they tried to fix it before, or how you might suggest fixing a problem now, something like that.
So I guess when we introduce ourselves, do we each introduce a different problem that we're trying to fix, or are we all working on the same problem?
We will each go in turn with one of us introducing a problem and all of us trying to come up with the solution. And then once we have decided on a course of action, we'll move to the next person's problem.
So whatever our area of influence or specialty is, that's the suggestion, that's where it's going to come from, right?
Yeah, more than likely, yeah.
Yeah.
And does it have to be that, or like if like when we get to the point, when we get to the phase where we go around introducing our problems and discussing as we introduce and discuss our problems, it doesn't necessarily have to be related to. I don't think it has to necessarily be related to my specialty. I'm looking for input from the council on your specialties.
Right.
Maybe I have something, but maybe you have something better.
Yes, I mean, we are all experts and we know what we are talking about. And I'm sure each of our expert fields can be applied to nearly everything. So at least this is my attitude as an expert, as a vegan sorcerer expert, that you can rely on. Yeah.
And so just to make sure I understand this sort of the phase, right? And once we're going to go around just introducing, ourselves, our specialty, and our side effect, and then we're going to go around a second time, introducing our problem, discussing solutions. Then the next one, introducing the problem, discussing solutions, and so forth. Does that sound right?
I think that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a meeting at work. You have an agenda. Yeah, and everybody brings a problem. Yeah. Sounds doable. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I would suggest that we put the camera off, but the microphone not, and I stay at my computer as long as my microphone is on. And so we can still talk and exchange a little bit while we do this. We can also use the chat if we don't want this to be in the recording when doing this. Sounds good?
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Looking forward to see our meeting. 10 minutes means half past. Good enough? Yeah. See you then. Since you will be in character, you can be late to the meeting as well, right? So just usually the top experts always come a little bit later. I'm very interested in the Shambler of the Endless Nights on page 42. Because it includes mummies. Dusty asking, can we have 5 more minutes until 35? My ritual isn't finished yet. How are you doing?
I'm pretty close to being done. I took a ritual and slightly altered it, if that's cool.
Yes. Now I feel comfortable. Well, not with my ritual, but with everything else. One minute. Doable. When you switch your camera on, you are in character. Hello, everybody. Who's already here?
Yes, we have convened.
Who is it? I can't hear you properly if you speak with your throat like this. Drink some more ginger tea.
Do not remember me. Blew it.
Blew it. Blew it up. Ah, yes, I remember that part. I'm Abraxas. I'm the compost connoisseur, the expert on composition and compost.
Compost, yes, very useful. You'll remember my domain is mushrooms.
Mr. Fungi, I remember that.
Yes, and I'm not alone in my dealings.
Hello, esteemed colleagues. Bluid, always a pleasure.
Yes.
Which superior bullet here, of course. Always happy to join our meetings.
Always a pleasure. And what of the others?
Well, it's good to meet everyone. This is my first meeting. My name is Soren. I'm a berrymancer.
Berries, very tasty.
Yes. Fun to work with, but they often lead to stickiness, random stickiness, and fruit flies can be a problem. But yes, they are tasty.
Sometimes you get into a jam, I'm sure.
You're from this new school in the middle of the forest. Yes. Nice building. Went to the conference there. Yeah. So, but I think we are still missing one colleague.
Yes, I'm here. Not to worry. I have been sent from afar across the ocean, where we deal in a different sort of trade than you lot here. Nevertheless, it is my pleasure to introduce to you this most robust and versatile form of vegan sorcery. My esteemed colleagues, my name is Spadazar Yamish. I am here to suggest for you the potato. Versatile. You can skin it. You can boil it. You can fry it. And all the while, you can let it be growing still.
Is it? But I heard like rumors that potatoes have nerve systems and are not exactly vegan for that reason.
They certainly are vegan.
I heard they have eyes.
And they do. You can carve them out for all sorts of rituals. The major downside of them, I dare say, is they're rather dry. So anything with blood, you're going to need a berrymancer. At least. Maybe something more juicy. Who knows? A citrus expert. But by and large, the potato and the yam, these are your friends.
I've heard of them described as the Hydra. Since you cut them, they grow back. Many new heads sprout.
Yeah. Put them on the compost and let nature do its thing. Does anybody brought something urgent to the meeting? Something we should cover first? Or shall we just go by the order of the table?
The order seems just fine to me. Although my problem is quite pressing.
Go ahead.
Well, the very air we breathe is at risk. The cave of inhalation is stealing it. Very air we breathe. Soon we will not be here if we cannot breathe. There is a ritual that is designed to address this problem. Would you care to hear it? It is a most terrible one. Sorcerer must bind the human sacrifice to a deep red stone near the pit. Fumes from the pit threaten the mental balance of this sacrifice. Every 30 minutes spent is sacrificed, their mind becomes more like that of a slavering animal, which will not leave the cave. Then, over the course of a day, the sacrifice will gradually turn into a stinking, shapeless lump of flesh covered with patches of hair. From its one remaining orifice, it will mewl hideously in a partly human, partly animal fashion, driving the air back out of the cave's lungs. What do you suppose we can do with our reagents in lieu of this human sacrifice?
Well, I suppose you didn't come unprepared. Like you already tried something.
I tried a few of my mushrooms, but they did not take. I was hoping that you would have some other parts that could give it the extra strength. The idea of the mushroom is for it to grow and become a screaming mushroom that draws the breath back out of the cave.
It's very clever, because the heat would cause the mushroom to sweat, much as your human sacrifice would sweat, but it would never turn, it has nothing to turn into just mush over a long extended period of exposure. It would become mush all too soon. But I tell you, a yam would do the trick.
Mm. And where would you place this yam?
Could carve a number of yams, all still connected by the roots. Carve them into a shape, and place them upon the red rock. A sorcerer would have to remain to continue basting them with water, but I'm sure one of us would be willing to let the ritual continue.
Unless you combine the two by creating perhaps a skeleton of yams and then cover that with mushrooms, and they would sweat and that would self-baste.
Yes, although I feel like it's missing something.
Well, for the hair, I do in that type of environment. I do know that some of the berries, raspberries in particular, will begin to grow a hairy mold in that type of environment.
Yes,
they will also contribute to becoming mushy.
Mush, yes, mushy.
Sounds like a good replacement, I would say.
And what of my fungal counterpart? What do you suggest?
I've been putting some work into making a blood-like substance that has sort of the same umami flavor as one can assume that blood might have if one had ever taken. I certainly have never. Anyway. And I find that that you can sort of put some mushrooms in a press, and really it takes a lot of mushrooms. It's a lot of mushrooms, and usually you'll need like to talk with the Beak Council or maybe with our Berrymancer to get the color right, but you just can't go wrong with that good flavor of mushroom.
Yes, I think the ichor from that mushroom will be just right for this ritual. Are there any others who wish to add? I feel like we are very close here.
I mean, we had this disagreement already several times, and I don't want to cook it up again here, right? But mushrooms. I'm not exactly sure if we still found an agreement that mushrooms are actually vegan, because the way they grow and the way they behave is very much like a living being. And therefore, at least not all kind of mushrooms, at least the bigger ones, should be treated with care. And if there's any chance to replace them, and I look at this nice little yam, I would hope that you find a way to exclude any mushroomy thing in your ritual. But we had this disagreement, I agree. We will not solve it today.
Yes.
Just mention it.
We're still stuck debating whether honey is vegan or not. I think mushroom is further down that list.
Honey's certainly a more controversial topic.
Yes. Honey is
Very
not
controversial.
vegan. Yes. Don't even talk about
I
it.
am pleased the honey sorcerer was not invited this year.
Would you believe it? I actually heard someone mention earlier today that it's possible a certain shellfish is now being considered vegan by some.
Oh, that's an outrage.
Actually, there is some truth to that. Take the oyster. It has no brain, no central nervous system.
Neither do earthworms. We don't eat those. They might.
Yes, very compelling argument.
Earthworms
Please,
have a
please.
central nervous system, don't they?
My friends, we have such a long agenda today. Please, please don't do this at the bar after the meeting, all right?
Yes, yes. I feel that my ritual is complete. I feel we have a solution. Although the use of mushrooms, you know, will have the unpleasant side effect of synesthesia and manifestations that you cannot quite control. But never mind that.
I'll volunteer to run the ritual if you need.
Yes, excellent.
If you run into any more trouble, I know a tomato mancer who does just the most amazing thing with cherry tomatoes.
They make great eyes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, eyes, yes. Cherry eyes.
But I think you've got this one under wraps, safely put to bed.
I agree. Yeah. So let's move over to our mushroom expert, then our next one.
Well, so you all, of course, have heard of the villagers suffering from night whisperers, as you know, the small demons that take root in the ear at night and so sort of insinuate their way into the brain and body of people, even livestock sometimes, and they grow and slowly drive a subject mad if they're not removed, which they generally can't be without removing organs with them. So the ritual, of course, that most of these villagers are using is to take a person of hale body and hopeful or otherwise sort of naive mind, and sort of put them on they set up a central bed in the middle of the village, and everyone evacuates for a while, and all of the night whisperers come to this one, and then, you know, after the night whisperers have really gotten wild on this one unlucky and just very you know, out there person now, you can then do away with just the whole lot of them, but of course the subject has to be alive the whole time, and it's all just very unsavory. I've been working the things I've been working with is that there are, of course, we have ear mushrooms, which the night whispers takes you very happily in place of human ears or animal ears, and that the issue I'm running into is sort of once it goes on past the ear, it's used to interacting with some brain tissue and some organs, and really, like, it without something to drive insane, it tends to find its way back.
But colleague, what are you talking about? This is perfectly vegan, isn't it? I mean, it's a volunteer and self-conscious human being in the center of this ritual. I don't see anything wrong with that.
Well, I believe it involves...
never called them volunteers.
Well, but you could organize it that way. This is an educational question. We're talking about these villagers, and they need to understand the vegan way to do it, right?
Perhaps a brain substitute might work well. Something of similar color, texture, and with veins and so forth.
Are you suggesting we consult a spaghetti squash specialist?
Well, I think I might actually be able to help you with this within the realm of berrymancy. Little known fact that bananas are actually berries. They're botanically considered to be berries. And I think a bushel of bananas, potentially could serve as brain tissue. And going through the peel would kind of be like going through the eardrum. And then, boom, they've got access to the brain. And I suspect they might not know the difference if they're fooled by the ear.
I could craft an entire skin out of banana peels.
Oh, amazing, yeah.
What you're missing is a good king's trumpet mushroom. Right at the nose. Good blast. A strident blast from this, with the proper enchantment, this king's trumpet mushroom will send this possession away.
I like that. Yeah,
Yes.
and mushrooms have something insane for me anyway. So yeah.
Yes, I was wondering actually, colleague, what you thought about the possibilities of using the psychotropics to perhaps interfere with the Night Whisperer's expectations of.
I'm not quite sure about that, but I would suggest a morel mushroom for the brain. It's very much like the tissues of the brain. Connected to the ear and the nose, it would harmonize quite well.
Perhaps if we mashed some banana and morels together, we might arrive at the...
A symbiosis of things, yes.
That sounds disgusting, and I love it.
Do you have any concerns that the compost, perhaps you have some knowledge on this, but it's my understanding that bananas, though berries, I did not know. I do know they do spoil quickly. Is there any concern that the mushrooms will take root, so to speak, in this concoction and spoil it?
Yeah, one should dedicate a whole area in the village for compost. That for sure. I mean, that every village nowadays should have a dedicated compost area. It is so helpful and so good for the economy, and it lets every village flourish. I promise you. I would argue on it, but I have to admit that it's a different topic. Sorry. And leftovers from these rituals are perfect drinks for the village kids. So everybody would be happy, actually. So even if I wouldn't be worried about the mushrooms taking roots there, as long as it's a dedicated compost area.
Will they not be contaminated by the Night Whisperers at that point?
Well, you should attract some bees. Bees are always good against Night Whispers because the humming.
Well, I think either way, whether there's Night Whisperer or bee, we would make it would no longer be vegan. Thus, we couldn't serve it to the village children.
What about this? We could synergize the compost section of the village with the Night Whisper collection system of the village. Have that set. If we can just have the mushrooms growing off of the compost, and then everyone can just have a one-stop shop for dealing with all of their problems.
Point to the voter, though. This required a, did you say a pale person?
Yeah, true.
If you require a pale person, I don't know that the compost would work. We'd need to make it pale.
Oh, that's no problem. You're just gonna have to take your potato and you're gonna have to slice it real thin, and then you just layer it every once in a while, and then as the mushrooms take root, they'll be white, and that should satisfy everything. But in the meantime,
will those potatoes oxidize though?
Not terribly. They're slow to oxidize. By the time they oxidize and turn dark, the mushrooms should have taken root sufficiently and covered it.
this is outside my area of expertise, but
Yes.
what if we coated the potato slices with lemon juice? Would that help keep their color longer?
I know that works for certain other fruits, but I don't know if it works for potatoes.
Yes.
But I want to say that if potatoes are included in this ritual, I don't want to take any responsibility because potatoes are very new fruits and totally untested, and I can't say anything about their origin, if they are genetically modified or anything. I don't want to take responsibility if potatoes are in this ritual. Like if this is educational, then it's educational. But yeah, it's up to you.
I'll also add that if we leave the problem of the cave of inhalation for later, the oxygen levels will be lower than normal and the process will be much slower of them turning. So
That is brilliant.
Yeah. Good.
I feel like we've solved that problem, have we not?
I have so much to work with here. I'm terribly excited.
That sounds good to me. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Berrymancer. I'm very, very curious to hear what kind of problems Berrymancers could still have, because they pretend that everything is solved immediately just if you throw some berries in, eh?
You would think so, but in this case, we're dealing with a drought in the valley, and the tried and true way to relieve that is a sacrificial offering, a ritual offering to the water god for some rain. That sacrificial offering, though, requires a blue female, blue virgin female, I believe, 6 yellow males that we would need to be able to burn alive and convert to ash, and a green baby infant that we would need to fillet and fill with the ash of the burned yellow males. Then the whole infant stuffed with ashes, infant skin stuffed with ashes, needs to soak in the blood of that blue virgin in order to create the rain. Then once we have the rain, it must be properly disposed of. I've gotten as far as I can make it, I can make blue with blueberries. That's an easy one.
Yes, this sounds like quite the pickle. And if only we had someone in that realm to take care of your green infant problem.
Well, cucumbers are actually botanically berries as well.
Have you tried the cucumber then?
As are avocados, which is the initial direction that I was leaning in. Particularly the unripened avocado skins, could serve as the baby skin.
But have you ever tried to burn avocados to ashes?
The avocado doesn't need to burn. It's the yellow males that need to burn.
Did you try burning bananas?
Bananas don't burn well.
There are some very excellent bright yellow mushrooms that I can get you.
And will they burn?
Well, I've never tried.
You need to try to dry them first, right? That can take quite a while.
Will they maintain?
They do shrivel a lot once they dry.
Well, that's the thing. I would need an amount equivalent to 6 males so that I would have enough ash to fill the large avocado skin.
And how often do you have to do this ritual?
One time should throw this drought.
It is said that lobster mushrooms are very good for roasting. Perhaps you could use a number of those in your recipe.
How many would you think I would need?
Oh, many thousands.
We could make the main part of the body from larger mushrooms and then cover the outside with these yellow ones that I might have to source from a slightly more tropical climates.
So are we talking like 3,000, 4,000, or like 20,000, or you said many thousands?
I think your mushrooms, it's going to require far too many, though I do think it is important that we incorporate them. Perhaps the bones, once again, can come from our roots. Perhaps ginger root. I have an ample supply of ginger root that could serve as the bones.
Ginger roots always can work for everything, I can tell you. They even grow in compost very well.
So handy. You have it right there.
Yeah.
I was really hoping there would be a corn mage here that might be able to advise me. You know, my general thought maybe that you wouldn't need as much corn because it could become like popcorn, and that would fill the avocado skin.
May's getting older and no longer coming to our meetings.
No,
yes.
The sad story is our corn mage disappeared while he tried to teleport themselves to Jupiter. And that didn't go well. They'd never returned. I'm very sorry to tell you. Like, they had these cornfields, and they said that aliens landed there, and they want to visit them, and they just disappeared. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to tell you.
And now no one can approach the cornfields. There's hostile children in and among them.
Oh, yet another problem to address.
Yes, but that's once for another day when we... I'm sorry we don't have a maze specialist.
So it sounds like maybe a combination of the ginger root and fungus.
I think that's going to serve you and get you your volume that you need.
If I made a form, filled it with compost, and brought that with me to the warmer climes, then maybe I could get I could get that growing a lot faster. Get at least maybe some shoulders or a limb out of it.
Well, this drought is becoming pretty severe, so I don't want to wait, take too long to resolve it, as, crops are dying.
What is the most important part of the body for this ritual?
I'm going to just say that it's just it just needs to be a volume of something starting yellow and turning to that we can turn to ash.
Get you 2 arms, put some clothes on it, it'll be fine.
They don't even need the clothing.
And you said the drought was an issue?
Well, this is, if the drought will help grow the mushrooms, the dryness, that could be beneficial, but we don't want to let it go too long.
So maybe I missed that, but what do you have for the blue virgin?
Well, I figured whatever, I need to take something blue, and I need to drain the blood from it. Ideally, something that was blue on the outside with red blood.
Wine? But be careful with wine. In normal wine production, they use little insects to produce the wine. There is vegan wine out there, but it's hard to get. Be careful that you can usually find on the description if it's really vegan. Normal wine is not vegan.
Well, one thought was if I had something that was large enough that would have red inside, I could make it blue with blueberries on the outside. So that, making something blue is really not an issue. That's Berrymancy 101. It's
and you don't want to just use red berries for your interior.
I could, but then I would need a skin around it all. I suppose I could use perhaps I could use banana skins and dye them blue. That's perfect. And I'll fill it with raspberries. And then I can cut into it and with or stab it with a straw, and then drain the blood out. And I just need enough blood to submerge the ash stuffed avocado in, and that might work. And then I just need to properly dispose of it, and you will be happy to hear, Abraxas, that my plan for that is composting.
Yeah.
For a quick drainage, I suggest using dried shiitake mushrooms placed around the form. They will absorb the blood very quickly.
Oh, good to know. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think I have what I need then. I will certainly give it a try and report back to you at our next meeting.
Good to hear. Yeah. So, yeah. Would you mind if I introduce my rather complex problem here? It's not that urgent, I have to admit, but maybe you still have the time, like, to do a little bit of help. I really appreciate how much we can combine our skills here, so I hope that we find a good solution with everybody bringing some of their brain power in. And I don't mean this literally, because that wouldn't be vegan. So in our case, like, we have a big project. We want to build a big, huge dungeon under our town, because, like, once in a while adventurers come into town and they are always, like, bored, and then they go into the street and do nonsense. And so it would be nice to have a good old-fashioned dungeon under the town. And so we need, like, a monster we can summon to build this dungeon and then protect that dungeon, and then the adventurers are happy and busy and the town people are happy. You see where I'm coming from. So unfortunately, to get the monster we need, which can build the dungeon, we need a male whose parents died of drowning recently. So the parents need to die before, and we need a male then to be sacrificed in this ritual. And I just can't get my head around that.
Well, do you know much about radishes?
It's not exactly my field of expertise.
It's an adjacent field. We've had some experts at our universities, and my understanding is you can grow a radish completely submerged in water. So, if you grew a radish completely submerged in water, then destroyed it, and took whatever its seed would be, and then grew that, could that serve?
It sounds perfect. Yes. Wow.
Or another idea, and I hate to be that guy, that I hate to be that sorcerer that says, you can solve everything with berries. But berries being the fruit of the trees, can very easily represent the child, the son and the parent being the tree itself. That if you pluck the fruit and then overwater the bush or the tree, it will drown. Its roots will drown and it will die. And then you still have these living berries these fresh berries that you can then, continue with, or fresh berry.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and the next step which has to happen is I need to get hands of the shroud of a mummy, and one which is soaked with the juices of the mummy, when it starts to rotten. So I need this wrapping, the mummy, put it around the male, and then let the male sink into quicksand. Easy for non-vegans, right? But
let me tell you about candied mushrooms. They ooze. They are fleshy. They have that sickly sweetness of the preservatives. You can't go wrong.
You could also try the hedgehog mushroom, also known as the sweet tooth mushroom. It actually has a sweet taste to it. Perhaps you combine these two mushrooms together to get a nice flavor.
But I'll tell you this for free. I've got more potato skins than I quite know what to do with. I have students constantly peeling potatoes just all day long, peeling potatoes just to get to the good meaty part of them. You could use some of those potato skins as your shroud.
soaked in potato blood.
Or
I see.
you could soak them in coffee, which would very much look like the oozed, decomposed mummy ooze.
So though at least for like burned, like processed coffee, as far as I know, they use highly intelligible bacteria to let them roast properly.
You don't have to make a flavorful coffee with the coffee bean. You just you can just straight up roast it.
Yeah, and dear colleague Blow, I like your advice, but I have to admit, every mushroom you propose sounds too much like an animal to me. So I rather prefer taking the advice of our other colleague Buit.
Very well.
What they propose usually doesn't sound like having a nerve system, you know? It's like, if you give it a name like an animal, I don't feel comfortable personally anymore. It's just...
I'll try to pronounce it differently.
We could rename them, but what's in a name?
Hedgehog.
Well, names are everything, but that's another discussion.
Yeah, so I think that that solves like most of my things. Like usually, like the victim, the sacrifice will then be sucked by leeches, and you need to pluck off these leeches, which is harmful for the leeches, and they wouldn't like to see that. But I'm not afraid. Like the seeds will not be attacked by leeches. Why should they? Leeches can happily live together with the monster in the dungeon in the end, and maybe even be part of the dungeon.
What if, though, I have heard that there are vegan leeches. Would that be a problem?
Ah, that's even better, yeah.
Vegan leeches? What do you mean?
They suck the juices out of fruits rather than the blood out of animals.
Oh. Wow. That must be a recent development.
Quite useful for our last ritual.
They're only here on Carcosa, but...
Yeah, thank you. So thank you, everybody. And I will try to make the best out of it. And next time we meet, I will report about the results if I got my dungeon. Thank you.
So, well, then I suppose my problem it is time to explain. Well, let me tell you, I didn't come all this way just for the pleasure of your company. We have a very serious problem on our end of the world. The creatures from outside seem to have returned. The last time that we had to get rid of them, it was a simple matter of taking a purple man, flaying him, and having him stand on a cliff until he was so exhausted that he fell off the cliff, and then the creatures from outside captured him and devoured him and returned back whence they came. A grapeologist and an eggplantologist tried to do something similar. And let me tell you, it did not go well. They set about with their wares, and they made a great pile of skinned eggplant and crushed grapes, and they caused it to be toppled over the edge. And the creature from the outside grabbed it and devoured it, but it did not return to whence it came. It invited more. Apparently, they loved it. Apparently, it sat out there long enough that it fermented a little bit, and now there are drunk creatures from outside roaming the landscape.
Well, there's not much you can do, right? I mean...
No. Once again, coffee is your solution. It'll help sober them right up.
Well, but then what?
But coffee can...
And you try again with a different approach.
Coffee can cause serious addiction. And we are vegan and responsible for all living beings and also for creatures from outside. Right? So don't put something which could cause addictions to somebody.
Sure, perhaps one dose of the coffee would not be addicting.
Just to sober them up.
Yes, you mentioned that the ritual involved a flayed man in the original
A purple one, yes.
Purple. Well, I don't have purple, but I have Namiko mushrooms. Yes, they have a sticky, gelatinous coating that resembles the flesh of a person whose skin has been removed without using a person, of course. You could put those on the torso and the legs, and that would give the appearance of a flayed person.
And
What
blackberries, well, called blackberries, are actually a deep purple. Especially their juices are a deep purple.
Oh, you could use those to dye the Namiko mushrooms.
There you go.
Again, this is typical omni-sorcerer's approach. You cause a problem in the world, and you think you could just throw something else on top of that and think you can solve it. This needs to be taken by the root.
What do you suggest?
So what has been caused as a damage to nature has to be accepted now to be part of the damage. So we have drunken creatures. They might be addicted to that substance. Creatures from outside. And so we need to treat them with the same respect as other creatures on this planet or on other planets and other dimensions and other universes and so on and so forth, you know. And so we need to give them constant supply, but need to get a volunteer statement from that to sterilize that they can't reproduce, so the problem will be solved by aging.
Well, that sounds like a very difficult task. The creatures from the outside are not... They don't communicate with us except to drive us mad.
Yep, you have created the problem. Now think about a solution.
The solution just can't be that they return to whence they came. That's always been the solution. Till this debacle with the grapes and the eggplant.
That or potatoes, yeah.
If you took out the grape and just did the eggplant, but a dyed eggplant, would you then... it's the grapes, I suspect, are causing your fermentation issue.
I suspect so. There's not much sugar in the eggplant.
Yeah. Just create a certain area inside our world where the outside creatures addicted can be treated properly, and we find a way, I promise.
I have had excellent results with small doses of red cap. It breaks the mental cycle enough to cause new behaviors. Sometimes they're erratic new behaviors, but mostly it works.
Are you suggesting an hallucinogenic mushroom for the creatures from outside instead of the alcohol to confuse them? It may be just the ticket, considering how much they prize madness.
Yes, the psychoactive components would be very effective.
But that is not vegan. No.
And, well, once they're under the influence of psychedelic mushrooms, you could sell them on the virtues of veganism, and they will leave you alone.
Do you think grass isn't vegan because it moves in the wind sometimes?
Don't start that discussion, please. No.
I'm
Creatures
not
from the outside are living beings with emotions and with nerve systems and everything what you can imagine what is necessary. Yeah? They're far more alive than bees and honey. Yeah?
We're not suggesting eating them.
But
or even sacrificing them.
Or even harming them.
We just want to get them back where they came from, their home. Surely that's vegan.
And in the end, this is where this all will lead to. All this vegan sorcerer movement one day will just lead into another commercialized nonsense which you'll find in your shelves in your latest supermarket. This is what I'm afraid of. And I am not willing to go that path down with you. No.
They'll never find my mushrooms.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think I've got some things to work with here. We've got a few solutions. I think the red cap is going to be the most promising. So we'll start with that, and I'll keep you all informed. If we can't get these creatures from outside to go back from whence they came, you'll see them soon enough. They spread all over. And then they'll try and drive you mad too, but, well, we'll cross that bridge if we have to.
All right. There had to be some disagreement.
Yes, that's the closest I've ever seen you to being convinced.
Well, I have a standpoint. You have mushrooms.
I'll make a copy of my new monograph. Mushrooms, not animal parts for you.
Yes, I will advise others to start calling all these mushrooms by non-animal names as a first step.
So, since the meeting is going to be over soon, may I just mention that we have a bar, and like everybody has 3 drinks for free at the bar. So if you would like to share with me a drink, you're all invited. Yeah. And respect to animals and nature.
Respect animals.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything to add? Thank you. And see you at the bar in a minute.
Yes.
Thank you all. This has been a very helpful. I will be back.
Yes.
I may bring some friends next time.
Let's compare notes about sewing banana skins together. I'm very interested to know how yours goes.
Yes, absolutely.
Next time I plan to bring my tomato mancer friend. You won't believe what he's doing with drying these things out in the sun. It's unbelievable.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, next time, by the way, have you already mentioned we already have a topic? We have sex rituals. I know it's a delicate topic, but we will be able to manage it. See you.
Oh, wait. Before you go, anybody have any magic mushrooms that I could bring back with me?
Oh, yes,
Yeah, we got you.
Thank you. I almost forgot.
Oh, I take some too here.
Of course. You know I bring enough for everyone.
Wonderful.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.
All right, everybody is back. Woohoo! We are not sorcerers anymore. Maybe we are still vegans or vegetarians, as I am.
Well, I wasn't before, but I think I may be now.
Yes, some convincing arguments were made.
Hello, yeah. Woo. Thank you for playing. The Society of Vegan Sorcerers. Good. Shall we go around for a little round of feedback and experience around the table? Is that okay for you? Who doesn't want to participate, as always, can leave immediately and touch base later on. Otherwise, I would like to go around the table and ask each person to share one nice experience you made, like one little anecdote about another player or an event in the game or something about the rules. So to give it an easy start, I start and I say that the so serious and concerned tone Ari had at the table really gave me an impression of having an expert on everything mushroom related with us. So yeah, thank you for being so serious in this. Ari, would you like to continue?
Yeah, actually, what I really loved was that you had ethical positions that you pushed back. Like, I was just thinking of like, how can I add to this? What's the next thing I can put on top of this? But you were actually thinking about, no, there's things I'm not going to be cool with my character. And that really worked well. Could play off of that. That was great. Sorry for the background noise, guys.
David, would you like to say something?
I like that everyone like took it very seriously. Like, we were really trying to come up with this, and like no one broke character at any point. So I thought that was well done for everyone. In particular, I liked Dylan's ritual. Like, that was a good one. That we were like a really multifaceted one. That was straight up Carcosa. That was a good one.
Dylan?
So I was wondering how having the two mushroom experts was going to pan out, but I did enjoy watching the two of you kind of play off of each other. And so we got this mushroom, they're all, but this mushroom, and like excited, like, hey, I've got my, you're my people here.
I was impressed how Ari actually knew the names of things. I could never remember the name of what I was trying to talk about. And I really liked thinking about compost and like thinking about sort of a different kind of ingredient other than just like a straightforward plant. That was really inventive.
Cool, thank you all. In a second round, I would like to ask each of you if you have some thoughts already now, something in your real life which you might have seen reflected in the way you played the game or what you played the game. And so I, again, make the start. And I wasn't sure at the beginning if this game is like a board meeting, or like a scientific conference, or is it more about veganism, or is this just pretending to be scientists who all push their own agenda, who gets science resources or something? It turned more into the latter, I would say, into this science person meeting. And I found it interesting that the metaphor is more on this than on the veganism side, at least for me. But your experience might have been different. So Jen, would you like to say something?
I guess I like how it's I do a lot of like art production stuff, so I liked how it was a lot of like, okay, well, we have this really weird challenge, and like how can we like build something that looks kind of the same with these completely unrelated ingredients. That was it's a lot of what I've done for work sometimes, so that was really fun.
Dylan?
I'm struggling to relate this really to my real life, except for the fact that I did find we each were, and especially me, like I kind of like evolved my character. I wanted my character to be kind of like, you could do anything with berries solve anything, and which if I'm not careful, that's kind of how I am in some environments where I'm like, hey, my knowledge can solve everything. But I thought I'd have try and have a little fun with that end of it.
David?
I'm working in a law office, so having intellectual arguments and like splitting hairs on definitions is something that we do, and like having someone play devil's advocate was great for like us professionally, and it's something that we have to do, kind of spar with each other to get ready to argue more effectively with the other side. So it was really great when we started like bringing up like, well, is that vegan? Like, and then like having to like kind of hash that out a little bit. It's like, well, it's kind of got like a root system and like a central nervous thing. Like, I don't know if it counts as vegan. Like I thought that was a fun twist on things that kind of reminded me of the legal practice.
Harry.
Yeah, I just skimmed through the Carcosa very briefly, but it felt like this game is kind of a satire of that game. But as far as like things that I learned, there are a lot of mushrooms. There are a lot of mushrooms out there. Like we both played the same sorcerer, but we never had a problem like coming up with some kind of mushroom to address. And like living in Southeast Asia, I don't know the names of a lot of the stuff I eat. And I was looking through the Google just like get different kinds of mushrooms. Like, oh, I've eaten that. Oh, I've eaten that too. So now I kind of a name to some of the things that I've eaten in English anyway.
I should have mentioned the yellow mushrooms have grown out of my house plants when it gets too wet.
Oh, that's funny. Are they edible?
Absolutely not.
Okay, yeah, I better stay away from them.
Then thanks for playing. Anything else you would like to add before I stop the broadcasting? Stop the broadcasting, stay with me for a second, and then we are